English translation 156th contact. Sunday, 13th of December 1981, 23:14 hours.
Man, I must already say you venture rather far forward, my friend.
The women are indeed in Eva's office and are talking with each other.
That you visit me here in the lounge, however, I find that a bit dangerous.
I have my protective device with me, as you see.
Of course, but if someone comes in here?
Then I am away in a split second.
Logical, yes. Come, then sit down here with me. I will not turn off the television. Then no one will hear us talking.
Your idea is good, and you have it quite comfortable here.
I like it. I feel cozy here.
That is the right term for it. But now I did not come here to talk about these things with you.
I suppose so.
On last Monday, I did not have enough time to explain everything to you more precisely, which is why I would like to repeat everything to you again.
I know. You came just to tell me that the High Council has actually given its affirmative advice.
That is of correctness. The High Council is affirmative in its advice about all the concerns, as they were discussed between you and me on the 6th of December, regarding our proposals of the efforts toward Ingrid and Ferdinand. Therefore, we will fully exert ourselves, and therefore begin our work as soon as Ingrid begins the wait time for her registration in the center.
Then this will indeed be quite soon. But now, what about Elizabeth? I think that she should not be part of a friendship with Ingrid and Ferdinand.
She has a lot to change in herself, and has to become of another sense. Her instability and uncertainty will, nevertheless, certainly let her decide at this time. This saves us all sorts of effort and extra work. The better way is that, first of all, she tries to change herself according to your suggestions, in order to find a clear path for herself, and indeed, one that is free from the clutches of Ingrid and Ferdinand, who want to bind Elizabeth to themselves by all means.
That is all right with me.
The concerns around Ingrid and Ferdinand and their children are also not simple. You must be clear to yourself about this.
Of course, it is not easy, and it will be a very hard time. You did indeed speak of 11 to 17 years that they need, in order to be changed for the better.
That is of correctness. But in order to take some of the burden off you, Ingrid should be the go-to person for Ferdinand, while also the children fall into her care.
By that, you mean that Ingrid is, so to speak, responsible for Ferdinand.
That is of correctness, but her responsibility will not be easy. We must also impose the condition on her that in the future she points Ferdinand in the right direction in terms of manual work, so that he learns to work properly.
You must explain that further, because I do not understand your speech.
I speak of the fact that Ferdinand is not exactly enthusiastic about regulated and hard-working manual activity. His mind is less focused on manual and profitable labor than on a leisurely life with light work and light effort.
You mean that he does not like to work? But, nevertheless, he has his own farm and manages this.
Have you ever observed him there?
How could I? I was never with him at his home.
Then you do not know it, of course, but I have thoroughly occupied myself with him. His mind is not geared toward a daily and exhausting work. With my daily 16 working hours, I am doing several times his daily activities, and in comparison with your daily performances, he disappears from the point of comparison. But this has been the case throughout his present life. It is therefore our condition that he corrects this deficiency as soon as possible and learns exhaustive manual activity. This is of urgent necessity for the later and following time. This will even be of vital importance if everything is thus regulated as to what we expect from him, and if he can be utilized for everything, for which we want to see him be utilized. But presently he still stands at the null point, with the mistaken idea that he only has to shape his life spiritually and in a knowledge-based manner. In truth, however, this is an erroneous and dangerous view, for he can shape his life only spiritually and in a knowledge-based manner just as little as anyone else. So even you, and we also, cannot do. If you or we or the Earth humans want to develop spiritually and in a knowledge-based manner, then we can only do this if we also exercise our manual activity in the best form. This is, in fact, not only necessary for livelihood, but also for the right shaping of the teaching and its processing and effects. If a human being, and also we want to live and learn in accordance with the teaching, then we also have to perform sufficient manual activity. Otherwise, things will get confused and the teaching will become a failure.
That is known to me, and I myself know well enough that I can never learn properly if I am not manually active enough. I need hard work quite often, and that in a not too scarce form.
That is of correctness, because the greater the quantity and the difficulty levels of the learning material are, the greater is the need for physical activity. This is also the reason why you can often work for days and without sleep, without getting tired.
That is interesting, and I actually did not know that.
It is, however, actually so, as your body demands this activity in this measure, although your concentration also contributes a lot to your achievements. But this also means that you learn much more intensely than I do, which I must admit with shame. You also prove this over and over again.
But now, make a point.
My words correspond to the truth.
You make me wonder, since before I know that I worked a lot more than I learned.
That is of correctness, and that also has its reasons. Learning activity is enhanced by a prior learning of manual activity. In order to bring your learning capacity and your learning activity to the necessary state, it was only necessary for you to promote and train this through persistent and prolonged manual activity, which you have done, nevertheless, to an unusually large extent. And since you still continue to increase your learning capacity and your learning activity steadily, it is also necessary for you to exercise your manual activity in the necessary measure, which, together with your strength and concentration, makes you capable of performances that must appear to the Earth humans as animal-like or at least as unique.
You make me out to be a hero.
I am only telling you the truth.
Okay, that is enough. Otherwise, you will start another hymn of praise. But tell me, whether it is possible to calculate how many hours a human being has to work.
It really can be calculated, but for this, the evolutionary state of the human beings concerned must be known, which you are indeed able to calculate. But now, with the Earth humans, the rule is still given that they do not have to engage in any compensatory manual activity in order to maintain a uniformity with their consciousnesses. Rather, it is given that they must work manually in order to promote their material consciousness-related learning capacity and learning activity.
Thus, the same is also given when we, by and from ourselves, trouble ourselves around these things.
That is of correctness, except that in addition, the factor is to be taken into account that normal development has a maximum performance, but also a minimum performance. After the consideration of all factors, it arises that the Earth human being, at the minimum, must perform 2 hours of intensive manual activity in order to produce the norm of the consciousness-based stability. Nevertheless, This minimum case still does not appear on the Earth with anyone because the lowest rate is 5 hours. This rate, however, can only be found with people who have already attained a high norm in consciousness. The maximum performance, on the other hand, is 12 hours of daily manual activity. But the large average is 6 to 9 hours a day.
Aha, and how then is the time calculated in each case, which is regarded as effective study time?
This is determined in each case from the manual activity time, from which it is always calculated as 1/8 taug, which must be performed as additional learning time, and indeed each day.
And how is it then, with those who work more than 12 hours in the maximum case or in general, when just the necessary time is exceeded and such?
In general, this only occurs among the Earth humans for the sake of material values or to indulge in a passion, both of which are wrong.
Aha, but we very often work much longer than necessary.
For your person, you have received exhaustive information. With the group members, however, this is in a much smaller measure, partly because they sacrifice their required hours of manual activity in order to increase their learning capacity and learning activity to a greater extent than what is normal for Earth. On the other hand, however, these additional hours are also performed because the mission requires it, which, in turn, has a promoting effect on the group members, on their learning activity and learning capacity, whereby it must always be assumed, of course, that the study time is actually kept and used.
But now, if I, for example, work for 70 hours, then in turn, I cannot just study for 70 hours.
That is of correctness. On the one hand, you, like every other human being, pursue an ongoing study during the exercise of manual activity, but on the other hand, you know very well that learning activity does not rest during sleep, if the human being prepares for it. But furthermore, and you also know this, the speed of learning capacity and learning activity multiplies according to the evolutionary state of a human being. This, however, is well known to you, which is why I am surprised that you ask me about this.
I just wanted you to give an answer for our group members.
I understand. Then I must also mention in regards to this that even with the group members, the necessary study is not pursued in many cases, for trivial reasons of fatigue, which can truly be combated if only the normal manual activity is exercised.
I think, however, that also with greater achievements, a lot can still be learned.
That is of correctness, but we can only impose this obligation on ourselves, but not on the group members. They have not matured enough for this yet.
You take the wind from my sails rather damn nicely. I already thought that I could make some wind with this.
You are not being serious with this.
It is just that you also notice everything.
We must turn again to the issues that were raised. Ingrid, thus, should be responsible for Ferdinand and take him under her care. For him, I also calculated the necessary data and have come to the conclusion that his manual activity has to amount to a daily time of 11.12 hours.
And what kind of activity should this be?
That is his decision, but it is imperative that the activity to be chosen by him is strictly of a physical nature.
Thus, so to speak, a hard cramp.
That is of correctness. It is necessary for him.
Wait a minute. Yes. Then his study time, after the end of work, would be for 1 hour and 26 minutes, according to which his whole workday would be finished after 12 hours and 56 minutes.
Yes, that corresponds to correctness, even though he will find little pleasure in it. That he holds to this, however, is our condition. But under your and Ingrid's supervision, he will be able to bear this burden.
You have hopes.
It will be monitored by us.
And how are things with Ingrid?
Her services do not have to be increased.
That is very reassuring, just when I think about her children.
I also feel very reassured.
I just ask myself whether everything is actually good. On account of Ingrid, I have no concerns, but Ferdinand worries me, after what you have told me now.
He has to decide for himself. Talk to him, after which I will then get in touch with you, in order to receive the reply no later than December 22nd.
Okay, I will talk to him. But now, I have a question for you, which gives me a headache. In our group, there are several who cannot be properly classified into the close association of the Codex members. And there are also some who are Codex members, but who have not grown into their duties or who simply cannot cope with them. As it now stands with this, will we be able to manage our task and mission anyway, or do we have to expect that everything cannot work out? And what about the fighting among each other? Is there an improvement in the whole thing?
In all of the things that you mentioned, you can rest easy, because according to our investigations, everything is turning to the good. You will, however, sweep with an iron broom and will have to create order with a lot of exhausting toil and trouble, by which means you will also destroy your health to such an extent that you will collapse and your life will be endangered, which will occur in the early morning of the 4th of November, 1982, when you suffer a severe collapse that will hold you down for several years and from which you can never completely recover again. For years, you will be closer to death than to life, if you can make it at all, which is very doubtful and is still open, despite our clarifications. But I also did not know this until today, my friend. Nevertheless, you have already set up everything so that your work takes effect, and that the determinations are beginning to be fulfilled. Thus, by the end of 1989, all group members, who are not Codex members or who have not grown into the responsibility of the duties and the mission and who cannot bear or cope with these, will have left the group, and indeed, either by their own desire or by our arrangement. Of those, however, there will be several, so the group will be fairly decimated. But this will do you no harm because Codex-affiliated group members will come to the group and enrich this as valuable members. By which means by the end of 1989, at the turn of the year, there will already be more group members than there would have to be according to determination.
That is nice to hear. But may I also know who the new members will be, and when we may expect their appearance or entry?
Certainly, but about that, and about what was said, you must remain silent for so long until everything has arisen in such a manner. In 1982, Hans Benz will appear again, whom you know, then also Brunhilde Koye. Christina Gasser should appear in this regard in the year 1986, as well as Elizabeth Kroger, who is the destined marriage partner of Guido Moosbrugger. In 1987, Hans Georg Lanzendorfer should appear, who will have a relationship, in accordance with destiny, with Barbara Harnisch, who should belong to the group as of 1989. In 1987, Christian Freiner and Edith Belde should also join the group, as well as Brigitte Clara Keller. In the same year, Piero Petrizzo will also be joining the group, who, together with Gilgamesha, will have a determination to show. In the same year, Wolfgang Adolf Stauber should also be joining the group, who will marry Filia Christine Gabriel in accordance with destiny, who will have already found her way into the group in the year 1986. In the year 1990, Andreas Schubiger and Simone Julian Holler should then find their way into the group community.
Well, I now know the names and the years, but where will I find everyone and who and what are they?
I will explain that to you some other time and in confidence, for the related personal interests should only be known to you. Thus they should never be written down.
Of course, it is a matter of confidence. That is understandable.
That is of correctness. With that, my friend, I think that I have fulfilled my obligation to provide information once again.
Certainly, and I will abide by the secrecy, so that everything can develop as planned.
Silence is a hard duty when one knows a lot of important things. But you will fulfill your duty.
Okay.
It is the High Council's and our advice and determination, if everything should have its correctness in the future time.
Of course, my friend. And if all this must be so, then I certainly will not lag behind and will also fulfill my duty in every respect. I have taken over my mission and have also fulfilled my duty to this day, at least I hope, and so it will also be in the future, without my having to make a special promise for this. Of that, my friend, you may be sure.
You are a man of knowledge from our own ranks, and you know your duty and the mission in order to fulfill it. We are committed to the Earth humans for reasons that are well known to you, which is why we must allow assistance to be given to them. We may neither let them fall into oblivion, nor let them sink into an evil end.
Of course not, which is why I am doing my job, just as you are.
Our mission, however, is not progressing in the form that it must. The Earth humans are so blinded by their misleading religions that they resist the truth by all means. This brings with it that your group currently is not growing and does not have group members in the intended for, as it would be necessary. For this reason, we have devised a plan that will nevertheless still lead the mission to success. It is the proposal that we have presented to the High Council, that it should establish new alliances which generate the most important group members from their own ranks. But on this occasion, we had to issue some regulations that would have to be followed. For descendants, we, in cooperation with the High Council, would determine the spirit forms that would be of correctness for the mission and the mothers concerned, etc. Without exception, however, the spirit forms would be those who are of Lyran origin and who remained here on the earth after the deaths of their former bodies. Therefore, the only descendants who would be born would be those who are inspirited with original Lyran spirit forms. Everything would have to be managed by the Arahat Athersata level.
That sure is something, man, oh man. But on the other hand, there could only be 3 descendants per 100 years. Since you, together with the Arahat Athersata, have only created the possibility to manipulate 3 spirit forms in this manner each 100 years.
That was the case. My friend. Through the help of the High Council, however, the possibility has been given to us, together with Arahat Athersata, to take and put through determinations in this way in an unlimited number.
Incredible. The High Council and Arahat Athersata would have to be one.
We will also attain this form someday.
That is clear to me, but until then, there's still a damn long and hard path.
That is so.
Of course, but the few years will also pass. There are only around 50 or 60 million years left. But I console myself by thinking that the earthworms will still have to wait many millions of years longer.
Your humor is strange.
Your explanations are indeed no different.
I will explain the details to you later. For now, I must go. Goodbye.
You are in a great hurry. Oh, I understand. Someone's coming. Bye, and come again into our good lounge. Greet Simyase, Ptah, Minara, and all others, including the new Black Roses, those from Vega system who are black-skinned.